The medallion is a non-religious symbol expressing one's will for a peaceful, just, interesting, and efficient world. One with balanced and opportunistic employment that systematically excludes negative and destructive types of work by not recognizing them as payable jobs. One in which the university professor earns access to a World Bank tier of wealth outside by working within. One which allows for the freedom to be left alone in the living treasury of the international countryside if one chooses to do so. And one in which is resolved and institutionalized to be free of colonization in all its forms. Because I am being followed by the American Secret Service, with my hotel rooms having been broken into by them several times, my book and data, including designs and speeches, copied, and death threats issued almost daily, all in the wake of the laptop computer Ayatollah Christopher Hitchens' hacking effort in mid-2011, there is a good chance that my speeches and work will be reproduced in bastardized form somewhere and somehow. I thus produced this video live to verify my identity. So if you hear some joker within the dear leader's ill-resolved necrocracy in one of his many grotesque mutations, it is not me. I will do my best, then, to make the doppelganger's thieving efforts more difficult and to expose their copyright applications as applications unto plagiarism, both unoriginal and illegitimate. To accept a medallion is to refute the barbaric institution of number money and stand for the digitized universal World Bank-based medallion system. And no, that doesn't mean a communist government is going to take all your riches away. It means we are going to maintain the living wealth at its headwaters, establish a reasonable 14-tiered salaried system that has a salary cap, as well as to enable ourselves to discriminate out the insatiable and incorrigible criminals from participation.
For the official, having nurtured behind his eyes a balance of levitating scales that clanged in his heart with a burst of creative joy, cleaner and more elegantly with each scale fortifying discovery, alarm struck him as the numbers began to count down in a groundless dime that had drifted into his line of sight, first ticking from 10 to 9 and giving a show of 8 before the number itself split into 2 ellipses. Ennobling him, as one of the ellipses glistened upon the waves of his heart, while the other found sanctuary upon the hairy forehead of the dead presidential figure on the coin.
Gazing up at the distant peak he had always planned to scramble, but rarely reached, the official noticed an unusual sojourner carefully making his way upon the slate path ashore from the disappearing rim of his crystalline heart. It was a bearer of spices, one who had opted to travel rather than opting to stay at home, as both choices were all right. And though one could never tell their purpose, as they had many reasons and much time to travel, he soon learned that the bearer bore black pepper and was on a journey of personal significance, for he spoke. "It is with unminted dimes that I travel forward to the slaughterhouse at the University of Caravanserai, going alone with black pepper and numberless dimes. If you have been or know something of that, the finest of all lodges, it is best to tell, as those at the Internation's edge made obvious that road ahead is yet to be cleared, and that the U of C as a whole is undergoing final diversification construction."
The official glanced under the bushy eyebrows of the traveler. "Lo, beloved international official, in peaceful military service of the international nations, while I am awaiting fellow officials in an effort towards constructing the great slaughterhouse Caravanserai, there delay bespeaks that our inner nation's edge is indeed not so sharp as it will be. were as unlikely to receive much national cooperation in the yet un-international world on these thin roads as we are likely to find primitively minted dimes in circulation. Dear internationalist, O balancer of the scales of our story, with a sword-wielding mind, you may do well to loosen your satchel and depart with the others when they arrive. We have space to journey with imagination here. The pepper bearer said, "My father may be amongst those you await. Though you curse the old number currency as surely as he sings the living and digital new, I won't tarry in either, nor in any delusion of his coming." I care not for the official status of his as I do ours here in an effort to balance the Acropolis construction with the ancient international ours historical. It is well that I open my satchel of spices with you. By what name may I call you, friend? I too have a satchel of spices, my keen friend. In the international, as you're sure to learn, each spice bearer takes for his name the name of the spices he bears. I carry laurel, my keen friend. Those others may carry whatever they may, and I hope that the recollection of the black-hearted dime I shall lose. Let us swap spices then, in this the Okbang House of Light. The two entered the trailside Okbang soybean, our historical lodge, at once, with the official escorting the pepper bearer to sit on a carpet with a warm burning hearth to one side, and a corked bottle of spice-hiked red wine on the other. Upon the pine table there were two empty wooden leaf dishes, within which the two officials placed generous samples of laurel and pepper. While it is true we have not yet the institutions in place to bring the three universal securities into being, we have our perceptions of the world and the power of words in our favor to presence them, each of equally weighted solar clouds. Let us exhaust our minds in a frenzy of internationalized world optimism. Let us see the darkness of our shadows from the incandescence of scientific imagination, dream science. Let us hold high the lights that the present educational system will fledge its wings into a non-obligate predator that soars aloft and alights branches with its balancing Alulan feathers. We shall give a balance to education to keep the mesoscopic empirical resolutions that the world ever be uncolonized and that the same school children will grow up within the international corridors of their hearts, with their immaculate dreams protected. Let the essence of the spices that reasons the opening of this road collude to enhance the vision between us. Open road, caravanserai. Black Pepper had already sensed the grand slaughterhouse. They were finding the prophetic verve to be echoed beyond the reach of the internationalists, abyss-deepening national leaders. There was no space for complaint, regret, nor worry. The military service belonged now to protecting the headwaters of our story, both of Peachtree and of the innovator's individual mind, as well as to establishing and maintaining the Universal World Bank base medallion system. Thus we speak in a world of post-bipolarity from the vantage of a matured world in which all know the international flags and institutions, with bases and medallions installed and awarded to their proper places. May we do so as people will for all times in neither micro nor macro, but mesoscopically derived empirical truths. The international institutions exude the security, joy, and subconscious freedom that was the Universal World Bank's promise into each person's corridoring mind. And now it is all right for those who want to call themselves different from others, as smaller we's. Those who don't want to have anything to do with the spices or the international, since our story is now known, institutionalized, and protected. The 4 million day ancient agriculture is liberated and unknown at its deepest headwaters. In the Houses of Light, the international official students, EOS, witness the contexts of the 3 great perforations into each language. English could do little, as it was, to bridge over the abyss that kept nations as discrete potatoes, each with its own undergrowths of the we are superior mythology. The bearer of jade entered the room and sat next to Pepper and Laurel. She was a slight person, with rounded shoulders and a cavernous tongue from having chewed too much beetle nut. Jade produced a minted coin and held it aloft, standing it vertical for the others to see, rotating it slowly as if upon its edge, though there was no surface there below it, of course, as the Khufu scale was suspended. This coin is of a universal mint and is produced without the agency of man, but rather by means of that which has preceded him, as we can measure by the colorful ruler in the escarpment. There is no head upon the coin, nor is there any year on the nation. Like a compass needle, its branches are seen by the sun. For good luck. Its modular international currency that falls from the unaging peach tree and Korean soifal alike, developed as local treasury dams before any of us were born and during our cultural rise. To put a recent head on the coin is to seat a mortal in the empty international throne upon each pure and ancient flower, to foist a mortal Johnny-come-lately upon an eternal institution. O peach tree, here fertility is upon a living lectern, legible. Each branch is a money trail at the leaf. O peach tree, in sight of branch-nested flowers high and low is the declaration of Universal World Bank participating livelihoods. O peach tree, the chalk you hold is irreplaceable. No man nor woman can scribe as such. No man nor woman can relate such imminted imminence, such a valuable and honor-pending truth that roots and branches are a result of fertility. This truth is of the mesoscopic mold, in the physics of the peach, visible to he who casts a transparent shadow, seeing through his eyes. Resolver of market terminuses, branches from a common trunk. The peach suggests that modernity installed bases where we want currency to digitally go, that there would be no money trails for parasitic branches. O peach tree, the Ayatollah's urine but numbers you in pre-literate alphabetic ill resolution, hanging a second Latin Bible signpost. Again we must take down a paper wall. The peach is now called into the universal earth, eternally developed, eternally here, brought back from exile, alive, provider of tribute. O peach tree, your fruit is forbidden to be named at its deepest headwater. Exile the Ayatollah's our story smothering corporate names for the archaeologically revealed soy in Okbang, Korea, found in a garden of Amber Khufu. and for the archaeologically revealed cherry and Hamudu china in a garden of bronze Khufu. O communism, you are the lesser, the low sprawling juniper of fetid blanket-eating moths. O peach blossoms, opening aloft, erasing the moon, you are the offices of remunerative fertility high and low, without feudal or ayatollic overlords. O peach blossoms, I reflect in the oasis of the imagination from thee, seen and now seen within the medallion. O Hamudu tree, a significant portion of the greater map, the common map of universal World Bank remunerative fertility. Confuciusornis was the first bird known to have witnessed the rise of flowering plants, and though he treasured his ivory teeth more than anything, it so happened that a pterosaur approached him one day with a wager. "Dear toothy bird, your flight isn't quite what we would like it to be, as we pterosaurs are masters of the woodlands, lakes, meadows, and inner seas. However, we have a proposition for you. If you can fly around the sun and come back on the other side, we shall make room for your kind in our skies. Seeing you have those feathered wings, short tail and all." Confuciusornis thought a while. I may have a way, and when I am ready to begin, I shall with my mates encircle a fly to inform you. The pterosaur was only hoping to bring Confuciusornis over the sea, that he might have a more inspired view of life. However, Confuciusornis took the challenge quite seriously. He studied his wings, but felt unsure. He followed the lightning fires, anointing his body with smoke, though he didn't feel much different. By mid-autumn, when many moons had risen full and disappeared since pterosaur had approached him, a branch fell before him from a sky-scraping pine tree. Confuciusornis had struck upon an idea. He would pound his teeth while they were melting anyways in the spring, and he would pound them into a fence around the ginkgo trees and some others that bore close resemblance to them, but bore longer catkins annually. Using the pine tree as a crowbar to snap out his teeth, young Confuciusornis built a fence and opened a river of ideas from his heart as he rested against the tree. "Observe, ptero bird, I cannot produce catkins or cones annually, but I can mark out the houses through which the ginkgo and his descendant flowers will circumambulate the sun." The pterosaurs were fascinated by Confucius's bizarre insights. The teeth around the tree turned out to be the path of the tree around the sun. This was all news to the pterosaurs, and there was an incisor amongst the many molars that Confuciusornis had placed specifically to designate now the time of the falling of the great strobili, falling that Confuciusornis had witnessed. Confuciusornis then lifted into flight, encircling the tree. Those pterosaurs looked upon him, and he dropped down upon them a pine branch with the strobili on them at the spring incisor. Laurel spoke. "Dear jade bearer, just where have you been?" The bearer of Laurel then cleared his throat. I mean to say, that kind of story drops the Ayatollah's scepter with the cones. How splendid. Pepper spoke. "You've come from the slaughterhouse, I read. The incisor of that brave young toothless bird is the unmissing sword of the sun, the guillotine of the moon, the sharply resolved minds of the international official. To keep its edge is to keep all inner nations' edges, sending the Ayatollahs to the mountains. The real border is observed between the eternal headwaters and the living international treasury and the mortal individual who has had nothing to do with the development of the CPA tree nor the cherry, peach, and apricot trees in the world's village gardens. An apple gives with hardly any effort to the hand that picks it as it ripens. See then, all these anciently developed trees are mature no matter what the season. It is the guillotine of the moon that keeps the waterfalls headless, and may we keep this rat trap set. The jade bear lifted to her feet and produced upon the clear coin etchings of young Confucius Ornis's ring of teeth, with a markedly incisor-like tooth set apart in shape from the rest. In writing an examination, if you fill in only 6 or 7 sections of total 10 sections, all sections being equal, the maximum possible score you could hope to achieve would be 60 to 70%. Universal citizens, formerly known as the villagers or rural folk, who live in areas other than the city, have, with their long inventories of 10,000-year ancient developed foods and material flora, completed 6 or 7 of the 10 sections of their wealth. All considered, the 20% of provincial individuals then living within the heliocentric economy who wish to further themselves with university education and/or careers in the city or abroad must be allowed to do so. The greater percentage then of universal peoples stay within their traditional communities with their living wealth secured and intact. Those that stay must then have as part of our historical infrastructure roads upon which to market their locally produced material signature wealth. Open houses should be present for students of the University of Caravanserai to enter to instill them with the balanced view that is the World Bank economic reality. With spices and upwards of 100 kinds of food, when I travel to their comfortable homes, I'm invariably charmed by their delicious and subtly flavored food, the originality of the ambiance, their welcoming and lively characters, as well as the beauty of their universal landscape. With 60 to 70% of their wealth already gained, they have long been poised for the act of historical justice, the reciprocation of the old LIHTC technology to allow them to complete their partially developed local economy. This technology is a form of wealth which has been developed by the forefathers of the second parallel development, namely the line of technological development. This technology innovated by the late forefathers must be liberated into international autonomy, thereby allowing the universal citizens to receive their due reciprocation, as well as the Acropolis citizens, that individual intellectual property rights be respected, and that colonialism of ideas be rejected. Immortalizing the greatest of the innovators, we shall educate ourselves towards recognizing their innovative situations and the intensities of their individuality and those breakthroughs. Yet the international organizations of the number money world have an ill-resolved tradition of gauging provincial peoples as moneyless, impoverished villagers requiring monetary help as they earn and spend as little as $1 or $2 a day. Banks and governments gauge the land and wealth of the villagers as a blank slate to be developed for themselves, then creating the poverty in the locals, which they shed crocodile tears over. These international organizations, governments, and banks have zero international enlightenments by which to judge these rather well-to-do and poised people. Post-resolution, these so-called international organizations of the number money world have nothing to do with the international, that which is between nations and within nations at the same time. They view not the 10,000 years of agricultural development that has risen civilization itself as a rise in wealth. Living wealth does not occur to them, and neither does the strangeness of rebranding the deepest headwaters of our history, the furthest flowers which open themselves in the many, many forms, such as mangoes, peaches, and sugarcane, as if living people in our age have had something to do in developing them. To view the universal citizens as if they have written 0 sections of their examination is the epicenter of injustice on this earth. There is a difference between the wild tulips, such as mountain pines, beeches, and oaks, and those which extend from the windows of homes as living paintings, the cherry, apple, and grapevines. Just as no man can be of any help with one mere ayatollic finger, nothing in the international can be seen except the gestalt of its deeply rooted and branched hands. Paintings of the 6,000-year ancient living peaches of Hamudu are framed and set in heliocentric relief to be realized to keep mortals from staffing the eternal international thrones, sending them as flotsam downstream by our resolutions. To have most of humanity downstream the colonized headwaters of our story is like being downwind a squatter's urinal, when we should be downstream, receiving the Chinese, Italian, Arabic, and Hebrew-named tributes from Hamudu, Okbang, Yangtze, and Tehuacan as corridor-hearted mortals.